Coaching is one of the most challenging things I've ever done. And I think that's why I enjoy it and keep coming back to it. It's very much like programming for the CrossFit athlete in the sense that it is so vast, the things that you could do, the differences in people, the skill sets that are required, that it is a challenge and each one is unique. And that's what I find so enjoyable about coaching. The only thing that probably outstrips that is like parenting. It's extremely challenging, but also like one of the most rewarding things that I'm sure that I will do in my life. And really today, I just wanted to talk through some of like the struggles, I guess, that I've had as a coach and like what things have helped with that. And just like getting into some of like the very like nitty gritty of like the specifics of like actually how I write designs. Because I've done a lot on like the content of what I'm actually writing in designs with things like programming TV, actually like getting into like how I'm writing for athletes. But oftentimes I'm not taking more of like a zoomed out approach of like what that looks like for the actual systems that I'm using as a coach, right? It's more about the X's and O's and less about the systems of how I'm actually delivering that, which is obviously incredibly important as a coach. That's representing you, it's representing your brand, and that's something that initially, even when I got started back in 2017, when I was using Google spreadsheets, like I was extremely obsessed with making sure that even though I wasn't using something that was like specifically designed for like writing training and like delivering it to athletes, that it was as clean of a service as I possibly could offer. And I think at the time there were very like honestly just like very limited options for software, and there weren't great solutions for writing things like metcons and other like mixed modal work, like putting that in a way that was like formatted the way I want it to be formatted, because I'm like, in that way I'm like a very controlling coach, like not in the sense that like I'm trying to control the athlete, but like I'm trying to manipulate variables and be very intentional about what I'm putting down, and that also I want to be reflected in like how I'm delivering that program, if that makes sense. So to be honest, I spent an exorbitant amount of time in manipulating and trying to just like put into like a reasonably refined product to deliver to clients. And from 2017 to 2020-ish maybe, I just put a lot of time into like making sure that I was like putting out a product in terms of like the actual like how the program is looking when the person is viewing it on their phone or their computer. That was something that I was proud to deliver to a client, frankly. And that included like creating demo videos and content around things and putting blogs on the website that I could link for athletes to do. And like all of it was kind of included in that. And obviously like the first part of it was like how I'm actually delivering the program with at the time was with Google Sheets. And then from that point over the next several years, I would say I was honestly fairly happy with the product that I was delivering as a coach. I mean, again, a lot of the software at the time was buggy. It crashed different times. Like literally in the 8 or 10 years that I used Google Sheets, it never crashed once. There were never any bugs. And as far as I know, like almost all software at the time did. However, I would say over time, that very much so slowly shifted where software kept improving. And then two is like my main pain point of using spreadsheets just continued to balloon. Like the longer I was doing, especially like certain like manual tasks that I just was like essentially forced to do every single week if I wanted to be a good coach using Sheets, and also with an expanding roster of athletes, higher caliber athletes that require more training, that require more communication and feedback and video review and things like that. And again, the manual actions that I was basically required to do and the things that were very much so like repetitive in nature were just starting to weigh on me. So here's an example that's up on the screen now. This is an athlete who's been with me for years. This is what their design at the time looked like. As you can see, basically each one of these cells is a day, and if it was viewed on mobile, it would just be showing that one particular cell. Basically, the nice thing about this is really that like you can like view, especially if you're viewing on desktop, which obviously people can do because it is spreadsheets, you can very easily see your entire week, look through, and then you can scroll down and see exactly like, because again, most people's skeletons are going to be similar week over week. You can see what they did the previous week very easily, see the results, and then scroll back up and see what's currently going on, right? I would do things like label, like you can see this one over here is a Fitness to the Coast workout because they were testing that as a qualifier that they were going through at the time. And I tried to make it as clean as possible, like doing conditional formatting so that they're entering results. This guy is, not the greatest at entering feedback, but certainly this was, again, I can see that like these training days are going well. I can, again, scroll up and down and see how he's doing. But again, it also doesn't really encourage him to like give a ton of feedback, and the feedback that is there, especially I have some athletes who write a lot more feedback, you're gonna see that they basically have to like label what the feedback actually is. So it's like, okay, B, I did this, C, I did this, versus it actually just showing up next to whatever it was. The nice thing about this is that I can go through, have a calendar for the person that's right there, have progressions that are attached to it. You'll see I have like, zone 2, he's got his macros attached there. It's like a pool progression that he could go through, and I'm just like, it's all in one place for me to go back and forth, and the copy and pasting is really easy. You do have to do some things since I'm working in a single cell, like doing carriage returns and things, which again is not the end of the world. It's annoying that you can't make changes on mobile, but again, it is what it is. Overall, I would say like it's nice to have the testing here. It's nice to be able to have like individual like heart rate zones and like have some of the routines and stuff, but there's issues with this. And one of the big ones is having to manually add new lines of text every time. And like, I'm not an idiot. I'm not gonna go through and copy and paste and like add it up on top. I've got a macro recorded, which is essentially like you can do a keyboard shortcut, and then it's going to basically trigger a series of actions and that can add lines of basically like, it's essentially adding a new week on top. And then what I'd still have to do though is it wouldn't correctly pull from a different cell. So I'd have to click on a cell, go over to the master tab, scroll down to make sure that I'm at the current week, and then hit enter and make sure it's like drug across. And so it's still some manual actions in that, even with a macro recorded. And so essentially what that meant was that for every client I had to go through and like manually, like I would call it like push the programming. So like I would go through at some point Friday through Sunday, go through, add a new week on top of their current week, and then make sure that that's getting pulled correctly from the master cells. So not only were there like a whole bunch of like manual actions like that, but then also like I had to have a whole spreadsheet with all my clients listed out with the day, the week, and then I could either like type in the day, right? And then I would have that like color coordinated with conditional formatting as to like, okay, are they due on Wednesday because that's where I got the programming through? Is it programmed or is it pushed? And I'd have to like, again, enter that as like a P plus a TU. It was like, okay, they're programmed through Tuesday, but it's not pushed yet. And again, I'd like have to like kind of artificially create all of these systems in place to make sure that, someone wasn't programmed, wasn't getting missed or whatever, right? The other big thing was client feedback. Someone would have to type in the particular piece that they were doing. Okay, the Metcon, I got this, because it's not like separated out. It was all just like one big block that they're entering stuff in. And then even worse was the video feedback. I was smart enough to create a bit of separation for myself early on, where I had all my clients download Google Sheets and they would download WhatsApp. And then I would have all of the general communication about things in WhatsApp. And they would also like link to all of their videos. So I'd wake up in the morning and I would have, notifications turned off for WhatsApp, but I would be checking it every single day, usually multiple times a day. And I would wake up and have like 40, 50 videos in there, right? With like, again, they're attaching it, but they're not even like labeled with like what it is, the weight they use, anything like that. Like there's no context to it. So you're looking through and you've got, again, you're not even looking at the person's design. You've got this open and you're trying to remember what the training that you wrote for them as you're scrolling. Someone's like sending you a manual message. You feel obligated to respond to that right away. And like, it was just a mess in that way. And that was like one of the biggest things that was just like kind of killing my workflow on a daily basis, as well as just being honest. Two more pain points that I can think of were like, one, every single time I wanted to actually go on and manually update an athlete's training, which is frequent. Like the people get, okay, I need this day moved over to here, or you know what, I'm going to be traveling on this day and I'm only going to have access to hotel stuff. Can you update this, right? You do that kind of stuff all the time if you're a good coach. Going in and updating that, I would always have to go over to the master, scroll down all the way to the current week, and then obviously like enter it, and it had to be on desktop. I usually updated the master and like started a new one every calendar year or maybe every season for an athlete. So, potentially you're scrolling through 50 lines of entire blocks of text, which again, the other thing is like if you got a slow internet connection, it won't always load. It loads the top cells first. So by the time you scroll down to the bottom, it takes a little bit of time. Even if it's only 10 seconds every single time you do that, it adds up and it's a pain. Final thing was like attaching demo videos, right? Like going through and manually like commenting on a cell, attaching videos, because it doesn't really work well for pull from one place. The demo, to link it doesn't work cleanly. So I had to basically comment on each one where I like put the exercise name and then the link below it. And I would just, it again, it wouldn't be attached to the specific thing. It would just be like they'd be blown out right there. And the process of going and finding that video, searching it on our YouTube channel, putting it into the spreadsheet every single time and having to do that multiple times, it ends up I don't use a lot of the content that I have because it's annoying to do that. And then if an athlete forgets a video, usually I would just stop linking it after we've done an exercise before. And I assume people have done things before and oftentimes things would get missed. So it was a sloppy entry point for them. Meanwhile, while all this stuff is sort of simmering on the back burner, I'm also hiring a coach, and the coach I've selected to help me further my competitive CrossFit career is using CoachRx. So I've been a user of that for about a year, and I've seen that, okay, there's no bugs. You know what, this is actually very convenient for me to enter my results this way on mobile. The app is really encouraging me to be compliant to enter my results and to make sure that I'm checking off what I've actually done. And it also getting rid of all of those manual actions that I would do all the time. And for all those reasons, I made the leap. I fully anticipated spending a lot more time during the switch than I actually did. I mean, I think I got everything transferred over pretty seamlessly within a week. And I would say like maybe 80% of like my, warm-ups, cool downs, demo videos all like indexed. And again, so nice the fact that like you type in 3 letters of the warm-up and it's gonna populate and you click on it and it populates, it attaches all the demo videos that you've already selected to put in there, and they're the ones, again, for me and my company that I've already taken the time to create. So the value there for me and for the client is super high, right? So now it's like, okay, I've got a clean client experience, I've got organized feedback and videos, right? Like if I'm clearing WhatsApp off my phone because it's taking up all my storage, I'm not losing the PR of my athlete from 18 months ago that I can compare to now, right, and make a social post or something out of it. So it's living on forever. There's like obviously like no manual updates that I got to go through and like push the programming every week. Like that was such a process of, when I had a bigger roster of athletes, it's like a lot to do that on a weekly basis. As I said, like having those built-in warm-ups and cool-downs and having them like conveniently there and like formatted the way I want to without having to go track them down is super nice. And then for like individual exercises, you're also having like basically automated linking to that demo video. So for example, if I type in like a dumbbell prone row, right, it's automatically gonna pull up a dumbbell prone row and populate that in there. I would say like lastly, like one of the newer features for them that they've added, like even just like hovering over athletes in the dashboard, you can see like their biomarkers and like having those things connect versus like having them like manually enter like raw HRV numbers and things and like not being able to see trends unless like I'm pulling that data and like tracking it on a weekly basis manually is obviously super nice, right? So it's like I'm saving all this time. I'm delivering a much better athlete experience on behalf of my athletes. And then I am just frankly a much more effective coach, not only because I have more time, but then like literally I'm delivering better programs and being able to track things more objectively for my athletes. At the end of the day, that's what I care about, right? I care about my effectiveness as a coach and being able to deliver an amazing service to my athletes. And I'm able to do that more effectively now than I could in the past. So I guess that's probably one of the strongest endorsements I ever have given. But I think, for me, that's why I reached out to CoachRx and I was like, hey, I would love for you to sponsor our show because like I don't really care to like peddle another snake oil supplement brand or a cold plunge or something, right? Like this is something that I use every day and I actually believe in it a lot. I think other athletes or other coaches and their athletes would benefit from it a lot. So yeah, I mean, if someone who wants to try it, we got a 14-day trial, link below, check it out. Yeah, I mean, there's, again, no risk involved there, right? Like, try it. I mean, that's what I did. I was like, I'll put 1 or 2 athletes on this, see if I like it, and then we'll go from there. And obviously the rest is history. So lastly, I'll say that if you're somebody who's been following along with what we're doing and you've been here for a while, thank you. And my goal over the next upcoming year is to just get out more programming TV type episodes, just like content that's quality, right? Hopefully quality, right? Things that I enjoy talking about. Hopefully if I'm passionate about it, people like listening about it. I would say if you're new around here and you don't know what I'm talking about, you can definitely check out those episodes. I've got a whole bunch of old ones. You'll see the ones where I use spreadsheets. You'll also see some of the newer ones where I'm using CoachRx. Basically, it's like me, there's like hours and hours of me nerding out about programming. And I'm sure that if you are an exercise nerd like I am, that you will probably like it as well. Thanks for watching. Stay the course.